Hello, welcome to the first episode of Knit Happens, a channel dedicated to the support of all knitters everywhere who are going through a project and find mistakes and how to survive those. A little bit about me. My name is Sandy Newsome. I've been a knitter since the age of 8 when my grandmother taught me how to knit. It's kind of a cute story, actually. She showed up one day visiting my family and had a little green ball of yarn and some knitting needles and taught me to knit. And apparently it didn't go that well. I vaguely remember that the swatch itself was really holey and had bad tension, and it looked just like anybody else's first knitting project, honestly. I got so frustrated I had to take a nap, but when I woke up, we started again on it, and she brought it out, and all of a sudden here was this little square. It was a perfect little rectangle of knitting. It was just gorgeous and smooth and even. And I said, "What happened to it?" And she said, "Oh, I just worked with it a little." But you and I both know that she just ripped it out and knitted it over, so I wouldn't be so discouraged. But I actually finished that little ball of yarn that day. It's quite, I think I have it somewhere, I'll have to try and dig it out, where it's just this perfect little rectangle and then it just kind of wobbles up to where I finished the little ball of yarn. So that was my beginning of my knitting journey. But when it came to garment knitting, I mean, I could follow a pattern. I could, I picked up the garter and purl stitches, okay, the knit and purl stitches, and was able to, make shawls and scarves. And I even started doing tube socks. I couldn't do a heel, but I could do a tube sock. I found a pattern for those somewhere and knitted a ton of socks. I think I had a dozen just for me. But always had difficulty with garments. They never turned out. For me, a successful garment was something that I could wear in public and not feel embarrassed about. And I used to say my record was like 50-50. I had like a half a chance it was going to be something I could wear, but it was really lower than that, I'm pretty sure. My mother was visiting me one day and said, "Oh, your sister's going to have an ugly sweater party." And I said, "Give me 1 minute." I went and got a copy paper box and I filled it full of sweaters that I had knitted that did not look good. And I just said to them, "Take these, and I never want to see them again." And I never did. So how did I change this around? How did I resurge my ability to knit a garment? Research isn't the right word, but I mean, actually I really turned a corner from not being able to knit a successful garment to, I would say my percentage now is like 80% of the time I can knit a garment and it's able to be worn in public, and I'm not ashamed of it. It really happened during the pandemic. At that time, I really didn't use YouTube for anything other than just if I wanted to see the group perform a song I liked. That was really what I used it for. But I ran across this woman who was demonstrating. It's a sock machine. I want to say it's Erlbacher or Erlenbacher. I'm sure I'm saying that not quite right, but it's a company in Missouri actually that creates these beautiful, crank knit machines that you can do sock tubes out of, and then you can add a ribbing and add a toe and add a heel, and they're beautiful. And there's even a way to do them on the machine. I think that was, I searched out the company's website after that and saw those kinds of videos out there that is possible. Anyway, sidetrack. I was intrigued by this woman doing the demonstration and went and looked at her channel, and she had like 4 years worth of videos. I started watching from the very beginning, and it was like a master class for me in how to approach garment knitting. I mean, it walked through the choice of yarn she had, and there was a discussion about, the color and the type of yarn, if it was a solid color, if it was a variegated, if it was tonal. I mean, these were all things that were kind of new to me, through the gauge swatch, through just the actual knitting, and then how to do these modifications that she decided to make. I mean, it was full of information I had never understood. I realized that even though I can follow a pattern, because I'm a step-by-step person and patterns are mostly step-by-step, there were all kinds of aspects to following a pattern that I did not understand. And so I, from that point on, was much more successful. But, you know, we all make mistakes when we're knitting. And I thought it would be fun to just share mine. Maybe it'll strike a chord with you. I can share, in some cases, the things that I decided to do and how that turned out. You know, we can just support each other in our knitting journeys when it comes to possible mistakes. Okay, so let's talk about what I'm making right now. I'm making a Leary tee. There's the picture. If you can see that, if that's coming through clearly. And here's the company below it. I don't think I can say it right, but it's Strickazite Designs, maybe. And the designer is Christina Korber with a K, Reith, R-E-I-T-H. Anyway, I really like the pattern, the way it's laid out. Right now I'm still just doing the yoke. It's got a V-neck, so it hasn't joined here in the V-neck. But this is an example of how her patterns are. She'll say, okay, we're gonna make this number of these rows here. This is a right side and a wrong side. And when you're done, you'll have this many stitches. So let's talk about the first mistake I made. I've done other patterns where they'll give you, do this set of stitches and then do it this many more times. And so that's kind of what I assumed when I was looking at these two stitches, these two sets of rows, a wrong side and a right side, that I was going to make 10 of those, so 20 rows. And you see I have this little sticky note here. This is how I tell where I am in the pattern. That was up here, right below the second row I was doing, covering up, sadly, the number of stitches I was supposed to have when I was done with my size. So I did my 20 rows. I looked and started, just validating. And I mean, I really keep track of the stitches. Here I have my front sleeve, back sleeve, front. And all the stitches are supposed to be for each row. So I keep track of it the whole time. And I count as I'm going along, because I have before assumed I was making all the increases or decreases, and I got to the end and I had not the right number of stitches in each section. And some of that was that my stitch markers like to move because I wasn't using the right size of stitch marker. It was too small, so it was going to slide under the stitches if I wasn't careful. And the other was that I just would get distracted at a crucial moment and I would not make the increase or the decrease that I was supposed to make. So I've gone to this method of really keeping track and counting as I go along, but I still overshot. She actually meant rows, just row count. And so if I had done 10 of just the rows, which would have been 5 sets of the wrong side and right side together, I would have come up to the right number. So I got to rip back 10 rows to get back to the count I was supposed to have. And when I'm doing increases and decreases like that, I'm not comfortable just taking it off the needles and ripping. I'm not ever really comfortable with that. So I just slowly frogged stitch by stitch by stitch, and I went 10 rows doing that. It got kind of therapeutic after a while. I just didn't really think much about it. I just kept undoing a stitch one by one. And when I got to the right row, I kept track of the rows I was fixing. You can see that here. I crossed them off as I was working back. I got to the right number of stitches. I was really pleased about that. So now I've started again. Here's the actual garment so far. You can see it's just in the process of, slowly becoming a V-neck. And this is really kind of fun yarn. It's got a little bit of texture, a little, some flecks of different colors. This is the Baracco Remix Light, and it is 100% recycled fibers: nylon, cotton, acrylic, silk, and linen. So I like it. It's not just squishy, but it's kind of, I don't know, when it's knitted, it's almost like a suede feel. And I'm always supporting recycling. So far, so good with this. This is notable also because this is one of the few patterns where I didn't have to start from scratch at least twice. So what was else I was going to talk to about this? Oh, yes. So this is just one of the fronts of my garment. So I have the sleeve here with this fun little design feature. And here's the actual front that's slowly getting longer and longer until I can guard it. So here's my marker showing the different, I don't know if you can see that, it's a little orange marker, yeah, between the front and the sleeve. And there used to be 2 increases. There was one right here before the sleeve, and there was one about three stitches in on the end. So it was being increased on both sides, and it was like that for quite a while. But the pattern stopped increasing here just before the sleeve, and it's just here. But somehow along the way, I picked up an extra stitch. I don't know if I stopped or I didn't stop soon enough. No. I think I may have increased here by the sleeve once when I shouldn't have. Just kind of automatically knitting, going, oh yeah, I put in my increase here, whatever. So I have one extra stitch here. But look how kind of fine these stitches are coming out. I've decided not to worry about it. I think one extra stitch isn't really going to show up. And if I were to decrease it now, it might show up, because when you have these increases, there's always kind of a mark on your knitting where you can see where the increases were. I think if I were to take it out now, it would look odd. I can always decrease later if I want to, further down. This is kind of my philosophy with mistakes that I find. I know knitters, I know podcasters, I know designers. I guess I haven't seen that many designers, I probably shouldn't say that, but who are adamant that their knitting has to be perfect. If they find one mistake, it doesn't matter if they have to rip the whole thing out and start over. That's what they're doing. It needs to be perfect. And I respect that. I am not saying that's a bad thing to do. I'm saying that I would get very frustrated, probably because of all the mistakes I make, if I had to undo the entire garment every time. I mean, I salute knitters that can get through a garment without making so many mistakes that they absolutely ruin their yarn, constantly tearing it out. So I've become very strategic. For example, I made a sweater, a cocoa knit sweater, which I really enjoyed that process. If you haven't tried one, I encourage you to. And I had to change my yarn, and it was like changed right over this breast. Well, that's kind of obvious. It shows a little bit, and it's subtle, but we're human creatures and we are made to notice patterns. And if you have a nice smooth chest area, except for one place, anyone can notice that. So what I've tried to do if I'm joining new yarn is like do it under a sleeve or just a little bit around the back. Most people aren't looking at your back, or maybe right over your hip. Most people aren't looking at sweaters there. So I can be very strategic. If it's something that by the time I've noticed it, it's not easily fixed, then depending on where. Now some things, it's that classic cost benefit approach, right? what's the cost and what's the benefit of fixing this mistake? And if the cost is that you have to do a pretty lengthy rip or drop down or something to make it right, and it's in a place where it's not a huge benefit to fix it, then I might say, eh. But if it's right in front where anyone can see it, then the benefit of fixing it is a lot more. So I tend to use that kind of philosophy with it. And that's just me. You do what's right for you, and no judgment here. This is a judgment-free zone. I'm hoping to do one of these about once a week. I've got plenty of sweaters to talk about. And I would really love to hear from you what kinds of errors you tend to make, how you have fixed them. It would be fun just to share and support each other as we work through our projects. So that's it for me this time. I'm looking forward to communicating with you again.